Hi friends! How are we all doing? Hi Red! I am back to streaming. I was a little ill on Friday, but now I'm slightly better. I'm almost finished with the inverse meme that I've been working on for the past few weeks, but I am just in the throes of cleanup, and I needed to do something just a little bit different in order to kind of understand the way that Leo works a little bit better. And since I'm also working on the style guide for Inverse, I thought that doing a little stream on Locomotion, specifically walk cycle, would be really helpful. So that's what I'm gonna do today. Just trying to balance the music audio a little bit better. There we go. So yeah, I might turn this into a video like on its own, just because having having a tutorial on a walk cycle is usually pretty helpful. But yeah, so I'm just gonna wait for little trickle, but I have my scene all set up here, ready to start animating, and I'll just kind of jump into it. So in the top left hand corner, I have a walk cycle reference. It comes from the Animator Survival Kit by Richard Williams. It's a pretty good resource. I think it's much better for intermediate animators than it is for beginner animators. But it does break down different cycles, especially like walks and runs, really well. So when you're animating pose to pose, which is like what most animation is done by, the easiest way to start a walk cycle is by what's called the contact pose. So the contact pose is basically where you have completed a step and your heel is striking the ground, and then the back foot is starting to lift up a little bit. So for this walk cycle, I'm going to use Leo again, and I'm literally just going to draw out the shapes of her body, pretty much just sketching right over the reference. So I'll just use this big shape for her shell and torso. I have all these lines here to keep track of the proportions. Sometimes the best way to stay on model is to just literally have your reference and then make a bunch of lines. So this is her shell, and actually I'm going to use the like panning to bring it over. Or maybe I can just move and hold shift. So I'll put it somewhere around here, and then all I have to do is get rid of this and say 0. I guess I should have just adjusting my brush. I guess I should have done this better. Let me start that over, because I didn't give myself any information on where the arm and body is, which is a mistake. It doesn't need to be super detailed for this first pass, but this is a good idea. So with the arm being there and the leg starting there, that's a much better, this is like much more informative. Hello! I don't know if you caught it earlier, but I was saying that I am almost done with the cleanup. but I need to understand Leo's like shell a little bit more, so I'm just doing a very quick walk cycle. And then if I finish the walk cycle really quickly, then I'll just do cleanup for the rest of the stream. But yeah. Okay, that's much more informative. So for the walk cycle, it's easiest to start again on the contact pose, so I'm just going to use her front leg, and for now I'll just bring it out. And there's a little bit of tilt on the torso when you're striking the ground, so it's not going to be completely straight up and down, it will be kind of at this angle. So her foot is going to strike the ground like this, specifically the heel. And I'm not worrying too much about the, like, getting the shapes perfect. I'm just doing 2 big shapes for upper thigh and lower leg / foot. I say as I, intentionally noodle it a little bit more. And then the back leg is pretty much stretched out behind. So you'll see I have 2 lines, one lighter blue and one darker blue on the ground. When you're walking, your feet don't like overlap each other, and especially not the turtles. The inverse turtles specifically, I know we were talking about how the gap in the shell creates a thigh gap, so their thighs never touch, which means their feet should, or their steps should not overlap. So this back darker line is actually for Leo's back foot to sit on. And that's just my target, essentially. So I do want to make sure that I keep the knees relatively in line, but one is going to be slightly higher than the other. And if it looks a little awkward, you can always adjust it later. I was just guessing. But this back leg should be slightly curved. And I am going to add in just like a box, essentially, for the head with the eyeline direction. And I'll just tilt it a little bit. It won't be too much. The shell goes out and then straight down all the way up until Leo's belt. Then it starts going back in. So out and straight down until Leo's belt, and then starts going back in. Oh yeah. Or here too. Out, straight down to Leo's belt, and then goes back in. I think mainly it is helpful, and I think mainly the hang up I was having is on the 3/4. So I'm gonna kind of go into that in the walk cycle as well. And also the walk is just really helpful to have for other animators. So yeah, and I'm not going to worry about the arms right now either, because the arms essentially follow the motion of the body. Unless you're doing like a very intense like speed walking, and even then, the torso, the trunk of the body should lead the arms always. So I'm not going to worry about them too much until I finish out the motion for the body. I am, however, going to move down my ground line, because I can see that it's a little too high. I was just guessing when I made it, so now that I actually have a body in there. There we go. So that'll kind of be the guideline for where her feet land, and it's really helpful to have that target, especially when we start getting into lifting the feet off the ground. So the easy part about a walk cycle is it's a cycle, and it repeats, but the steps also repeat. So right now we have the, this is her left foot contacting the ground. So it's contact on left, and then her arms, no, that's her right foot. I also don't know left from right, so that's my fault. Her right foot is contacting the ground, and her left foot is behind. I'm going to actually use an airbrush to just fill in her back foot a little bit. Let's set this to constant. Actually, it should be a darker tone. There. I'm going to keep that foot relatively filled, or the leg relatively filled in, just because it's easier to keep track of when we start moving feet around. But especially because the next frame that we're going to draw is the other contact, so where this back foot, the left foot, is contacting the ground. And this timing chart up here on my reference works for 24 frames per second, but it's not going to work for 12. So I'm just going to guess, because usually our other contact is either around 13 or is around, well, no, it's around 13 or 14 if we're starting on 1. So I'm going to guess it's going to land around 7, since we are going to divide everything by 2. So on 7, I'm essentially just going to make a new frame, and I'm going to erase the legs, because the body is going to stay almost the same. We're going to alter it just a little bit, but I want to have a good starting point. So just erasing the legs and turning on onion skin. So now the leg that's in front, or the right leg, is going to be dragging behind, and the back leg, or again the left leg, is going to be contacting the ground. Oh yeah, no, I'll totally send you the walk too, because even though I'm getting this style, I definitely know that I'm not going to nail it 100% on my second try. So the other thing I'm going to do is actually kind of swing out the torso just a little bit. It's not going to be too extreme, but her shell's going to kind of recede, and we're going to get the shoulder outwards like this. So essentially we're seeing more of her front and less of her side. And that's just, if you pay attention to the way that you walk or somebody else walks, you're not, you know, completely, your torso is not facing one direction all the time. It does twist. And especially in order to like make the legs less awkward, we need to have that portrayed. So here's where her shell sits, and then this is where her leg's gonna come from. This is kind of an open stance, so I will close it off just a little bit. It's going to be a very subtle twist. I'm just doing like a very non-emotion, or like a non-emote walk. If we were doing a personality walk, we might twist the body out a little bit more. So again, this time this leg is going to target the front line, and I'm not really worrying about staying 2 on model with the design, as long as I block in some big shapes for myself later. And now the leg that's out in front is our left leg. Yes, that's correct. And it's going to target this front line. And it'll be ever so slightly in front of the line we had before. I also think that her body might tilt a little bit backwards. Like that. Just because the weight is now landing on this leg, so she's taking the weight off of her back foot. Really, there's hardly any weight being placed on this foot. That's why it, you know, you're able to keep your balance, and all of the weight is going to shift this way. I should stop drawing arrows because they're going to pop when I play it. And again, I'm trying to keep everything in line, but it's going to be slightly off because she is standing straight up here and is a little bit tilted forward for the walk. Oh, and do I need her tail? Yeah, I think so. So here her tail's going to be much more prominent. And here it's going to be a little bit more hidden because the spine like moves and adjusts and all that. So it's a little stiff and awkward for now, but we will fix it later. Now I want to make sure this has the same amount, and I'm going to go ahead and copy the first frame over to the last frame, just because I want it for reference when I'm doing the other poses. So now that we have our 2 contact frames, the next best place to start is what's called the passing position, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the off leg or the back leg, the leg that has no weight on it, passing by the weight, the I don't know, load-bearing leg. So you can see it here, it's this one. It looks like, so you have your torso, and then you'll have your load-bearing leg. It's pretty much straight up and down, and then your back leg is passing it. And they're both pretty important poses. I didn't shade the back leg for this one. There we go. So for this one, another fun thing we get to do is just erase the legs, basically. The body is going to move up ever so slightly. It is genuinely going to be like the slightest movement possible, because when you walk, your head kind of bounces up and down in an arc. There's a lot of ways to approach a walk, and one of the ways that I know is also very common is to literally animate the body bobbing up and down first and then the legs. I personally can't work like that. It doesn't, my walk cycles don't come out well when I work like that. It is another method though that's available. This is just the method that works best for me. And so then again on the body, she is going to start moving slightly outwards, but not completely. So we see the beginning of that. And I would almost bet that her head is going to drag downwards a little bit. She actually is passed out. We went for a very long walk this morning, and cannot hear me, apparently, because I knew that I was going to say the word walk a lot. Yeah, she's sleepy. Thank God. Anyway, so for this one, again, the load-bearing leg is the leg that just contacted, so it's the right leg, the outward leg. And it's going to be pretty straight up and down. There's always, like, you can favor the next frame, especially if you're working at 12 frames per second, and we don't have a lot of poses to work with. We can favor this frame a little bit, and especially because we don't want the leg to look like the knee is locking, we can add a nice, like, curve in here. But we do want to make sure that the foot is pretty much flat on the ground. That's one of the most important things, is making sure that the feet lock and don't slide. And then the back leg is going to be kind of bent like this. Depending on your character, you might see that nice, well, I don't know, a lot of the times you want to have some good negative space in between these two legs, but you want to make sure that it's a readable amount and not an amount that looks like a mistake or like you missed a section when coloring. So I will play around with having this negative space here, but if it doesn't work, then I'll just move it a little bit. I'm glad. Walk cycles can be tricky, and like I said, there's multiple ways of doing them. There's not just one particular way. This is the way that works for me, and the way that works for a lot of people. Again, some people can just, like, do the head and body movement and then add the legs later. I can't work like that. It's not my thing. But what works for you works for you. So now I'm just checking to make sure that the thigh and shin didn't, like, get too long. You can fudge around with the length of both in this frame in particular, not so much in the other two. But in this frame, you can fudge a little bit if the silhouette reads better. And I think it does, because having this negative space gap right here, this little triangle, is so good for readability. But the thigh is looking a little skinny, and so I don't want to be too harsh on the model. But again, having that negative space is a balance of making sure it doesn't look like there was a coloring error. Oh, absolutely. If you want me to send you the guide on the walk cycle, I can also DM it to you, Red. Because I think there's a difference between, like, just looking at this image and then having someone explain it to you, right? So I will fix the volumes on the legs later, but for now I think we're working okay. And then I can just airbrush this back leg. And then we're gonna do the exact same thing for the other side. So, I hate that the mic can pick up my sniffles, but, for this side, same thing, except it's the other leg. So now the back leg, the left leg is load bearing, and the front leg is going to be our movement leg. And we're also going to start moving forward with the torso. Or I guess it's more like back. So, oops, I'm on the wrong color. Yeah. So we have our load-bearing leg, which again is going to target this back line. And we can have it a little bit curved. I did forget to move the body up ever so slightly. So we want to move that up just a little bit to give that room, or to give the leg enough room to stretch. Because you actually are kind of starting to push your body up. So when you contact to the ground, you kind of fall forward, and now you're pushing your body back up. There is a pose called up, and that's the next pose, but you're in the beginning of pushing it up, so we gotta make sure that we indicate that with the head and arm movement. And I'll airbrush it later. For the passing position, we really have to make sure that the silhouette is clear. So I'm gonna do something like this. And that thigh's a little bit too long. So I don't want to... This leg is mostly kind of at a downwards angle. So let's go like this. And that's way too long. Because this is our outward facing leg, I actually am just going to draw over the lower leg on the reference and then move it over to the drawing itself. And we can fudge it a little bit from here. But since this is our forward-facing leg, we want to make sure that it's a little bit more correct. So it's not going to be completely at a 90-degree angle. It is still going to be dragging behind a little bit. And there is room for improvement with this drawing when we get it in context with the other ones. But for now, it's okay. So if we actually play it through now, it's a fairly comprehensive walk. She does look like she's limping a little bit, and that's an issue with that front leg. Again, I definitely need to go back and alter the drawing once I have it in context with the others. But this is a really good, like, start, basically. If I handed this off to another animator, they would basically know exactly what to do. It's also a really good, like, if you want to do a little bit more work in the storyboarding phase, to show personality in the walk, doing these 4 drawings is really great. So the next thing we're gonna do is, my timing's a little bit off, but we can fix it later. The next pose that we usually do, some people start with down and some people start with up. I'm gonna start with the recoil or down phase. So this is right after you contact the ground, your knee is going to bend and catch yourself, because walking is essentially just falling and catching yourself and falling and catching yourself. So that is, yeah, that's the next frame. And then with that, your head and torso is going to move down as your knee bends. So it's not going to be too extreme, but it is going to be a noticeable change. And I'm going to like rotate her torso forward ever so slightly. So again, the load-bearing leg is this front one, the right one. So out of the socket here, we want to make sure that we keep her knee in line with what we've already had. So the knee should bend around this line in kind of an arc. Animation is literally all about arcs. And then we want to bend and contact, or well, we've already contacted. We want to bend and flatten her foot here. And actually, sometimes it's better to favor the contact pose. So I might actually just bring her leg out here. Again, it's a transfer of weight to this leg. So I'm going to rotate the body a little bit forward and down. Because we have to remember there's also a third axis that we can't really see, and it's like this way. So if you can imagine it pointing backwards, that's the axis along which her hips are rotating. And we want to make sure that we get that as well. So if you're ever looking for live action reference, then there's a YouTube channel called Endless Reference. That's really good about posting walk cycle content. Isn't that the Z? Yes, it is the Z-axis. In some programs, in good programs, it's the Z-axis. Because you have X this way, and then Y this way, and then Z is the one that's facing you. Some programs, like I think AutoCAD is one of them, are ridiculous, and they make Z the up axis, which makes no sense because in all of math, Y is the up and down axis. But yes, in programs that make sense, the Z axis should be the one that's facing you. So in this one, the most her shell's gonna kind of face outward. We'll see the most of her tail. And then that leg's gonna drag behind. So this is the last leg, or not the last leg, there's only two of them, but this is the back leg. And it has lifted off the ground. So. Again, I'm not really going for design accuracy right now, I'm just going for posing. So this is the toughest one. This pose, or like This pose in particular is the most difficult to get usually. Even I still struggle with the down pose. So sometimes the best thing to do is just use the warp tool. And then figure it out in context with the other drawings, because this is a really big jump. So it kind of shrunk. So mostly what's happened is her leg got longer when I bent it at the knee. And like I said, the recoil and the up are the two most difficult poses to stay on model with. And so the best thing to do is to just draw it the first time, look at it in context with the other poses, and then keep adjusting until it looks right. Don't try to nail it on the first try. So part of the mistake that I made is I erased my socket context. So what I'm actually going to do is on another frame, on a new frame, I'm going to essentially just take the pose again, and this time make sure that I keep the socket for the hip, I mean. And now I'm going to pose and adjust this drawing to match the one for the down pose. And now that I have the socket, I'm going to use the onion skin on the down pose to... Actually, the better thing to do would be to just, on the correct drawing, add the legs. So I still believe that her thigh is a little bit too long. But that might just be I'm not looking at the knee pad as the knee. Okay, that looks much better. So now we have a much clearer bend with a, like, something's still a little bit off. But again, it could just be, like, something I fix in a second pass. The fun thing is that we get to do that again for the other side. So this time I'm going to be smarter about it. I have the socket, and I'm not going to get rid of it. And in fact, on the other side, I'm going to draw in the marker for the socket. So now moving her down quite a bit, actually. I can start with this front leg. So I want to make sure that I still keep her knee in line, because that's how we get popping, is not aligning the knee properly. And then the other thing we can do is kind of tilt that body forward. Again, to mimic the rotation on the z-axis. And this other foot will be brought up. It's going to kind of leave the ground, and I almost want to bend the leg just a little bit. So I'm gonna add some like slightly more even spacing. So that front leg bends just a little bit too much. But the second leg is almost perfect. So this one bends just a little too much. Or maybe it's not the leg and it could just be the body. And possibly the placement of the knee. It's right here. This is too much space. And the other thing that we're missing is the up pose. So the last pose that fits in the walk cycle and makes it look really good is called the up pose, and it is right between the passing position and contact. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's the body moving up. So this is another area where we can get a lot of popping if we're not careful. So I'm going to keep the leg socket because that's what threw me over last time. And on this new drawing, I'm going to move her up quite a bit. So here her heel is starting to come off the ground. And we don't want her leg to look locked again, so we're gonna try and keep a curve. And her toes will stay on the ground. This might also be an area where I need to alter the position of this foot. If I play the animation through and it looks like her foot is getting stuck on the up pose, it's because I did not give enough space to the passing position. And that's fine, that's something we can just fix really quickly. And then the other thing we want to make sure is that the back leg comes up and the knee is going to bend in an arc. Again, so we want to make sure that we're following the knee from the previous frames. And it's not going to be a full, like, 90-degree angle like this. But we do want to make sure that we clear the leg away from the previous position enough where her leg doesn't look like it's getting stuck. So I'd be willing to bet that that's decent. But this socket it's this leg. So like I was saying, I did not give enough space between the two positions. So if I applied that, now her foot should be the other one, I guess, is here. Again, you can like draw these frames all you want, but the moment you put them in context with the other frames, that's when things can start to look like strange or off. And so it doesn't matter how perfect you draw them the first try, you will probably have to fix them in context. So this is a very quick drawing. Is actually too much space between the two. So instead what I'm going to do is prioritize the or what we call prioritize? No, it's favor this passing position. Rather than drawing a like quote-unquote correct down, we're going to make sure that this passing or that the down sets up the passing position, because right now it does not. Same with this. So, here I think it's a case of the body just needs to move up a little bit. So that way I can rotate my foot without having to like break the volume of the knee. And if you really want to get fancy, you can show a little bit of the underside of the foot here. Oh, we're missing the other up position. So this one will be here. And so in this case, this front leg is now going to be our up leg. We want to make sure that we keep the knee aligned. And our back leg is going to be very similar. I'm glad. I hope they're not like boring, but I do like to just put on relaxing music and then get into the zone, you know? Energetic music while working for me is only if I'm in cram mode. If I'm just in like animate and vibe, I want like a little bit of relaxing music, you know? Okay. So we have a little bit of awkward popping, and I have a feeling it's also because the gap between Leo's legs are a little bit too big. She's kind of cowboying it right now. So what I'm actually going to do is go through and move the ground line closer just a little bit. I think I overestimated the distance between her legs. And now I'm going to go through and just move all of the feet down a little bit. I get you. All good. Honestly, I like that my streams are at least comforting. Um, okay, I think that looks a lot better. It's still a little, like, jittery. And it also might just be because I haven't in-betweened it fully. Like, technically, I'm looking at it 24 frames per second on 4s, because this is 12 on 2s. So if I change it back down to 1s, what does it look like? Oh, wait. That's not how markout works. There we go. That's a speedy walk. Okay, so I think if I in-between it, it won't look so, like, jittery. Oh, I have an extra frame here. That's why it's shuddering. 2, 1, 2. Yeah, it looks okay. Obviously there's some, like, things that go into when you copy and paste the body like this. Either you need to do some alterations. There's no squash and stretch on her torso yet, which is probably part of why it's looking so rigid. She also doesn't have arms or like any secondary action, but for the most part, this walk cycle is like a good start. Like, I would be comfortable tying this down, and I think, yeah, it's a fairly good start. Obviously, there's still a lot of work to do and a lot to build on top of, but for the most part, that's pretty much how I go about constructing a walk cycle. Like I said, it's not the only way. There are plenty of ways of constructing a walk cycle, but this is my favorite way. And yeah, I think it works pretty well. I'm just going through and looking at any inconsistencies that I could potentially add. The frame rate is something that I've been like pretty, what is it? What's the word I'm looking for? Like, not concerned about, but I've been debating, because on the one hand, 12 frames per second is easier, and it is possible to animate like pretty well at 12 frames per second. But on the other hand, so much of what you learn and like the way to time out scenes is made specifically for 24. There could be some times where we literally don't have the right amount of frames to do like a very smooth or quick action. Like the head shake that I was doing for the Leo animation, it's already on 1s, but technically that's like 2s at 24, if that makes sense. So it lasts longer than a 1 should last. And I can't go any faster. Like, I can't add any more drawings. So the head shake is a little bit, it's not the best. But there's so few scenes where we would need to be on 1s, where we need a frame or a drawing to last 1/24th of a second, that I think 12 is okay. I think we'll be fine. And at least like 12 is a multiple of 24. right? Like, because, 12 by 2 is 24, which means if we need a scene to be at 24 frames per second, we won't get what's called interpolation if we mix the two of them in one video, because it's already a multiple. It might be a little wonky, so like I would suggest not mixing for lip sync. But if there's an action scene and we're like, we really need this to be at 24, it shouldn't be too much of a problem to mix the two together, if that makes sense. I think for the scope of the basically like TLDR, for the scope of this project, 12 is fine. And if we come across a scene where we need more drawings, we can jump up to 24 without a problem. Because I'll show you an example of what I mean. If I open the inverse test that I was doing, so this is the Mikey run. So runs are usually on ones. And right now it is on ones. And usually you have your contact down passing up. So it's 8 drawings. Contact down passing up, right? Yeah. Contact down passing up. So 4 on each side. And usually it's 8 drawings on ones at 24 frames per second. This Mikey run, I couldn't do 8 drawings. So we actually only have contact down, and then this is the up. And this is a frame I had to add in there. No, wait, is there more for a run? Because there's the frame where you have to leave the ground. Basically, I had to adjust the amount of drawings and like what they showed for the run cycle at 12, because when I had the full amount of drawings, which I think there's supposed to be 5 for a run, it was too slow. So if I just turn off the Mikey layer, you can see the run looks a little weird and choppy. And that's because I can't get 1/24th of a drawing at 12. So yeah, like you said, this is definitely something that having animation tests will help with, because I think when we have ones, we might have, or when we have like runs or action, we might have to go up to 24. But I think for talking, and even this walk scene, this walk is okay on this. There's a drawing that I just caught. It's again, this one's being really awkward, but it's something that definitely, as I do more tests and style guides, will help. I think most people are used to animating at 12, but like the other thing is, I know that I won't put anything at 12 frames per second in my portfolio. Like it's not industry standard, and it wouldn't be good to put in my portfolio if I was animating on 12. I would only put bits that are on 24. So if people are joining the project for portfolio work, we might talk about it. But also, again, 24 or 12 is the easiest for this project. I mean, because it'll work. Anyway, there's still some popping in the knees, so you can see when on this down frame. So I might just alter the drawing again. And it could be also up here. it could just be a factor of like, I really need to move the body down a lot. Eh. It might just need some in-betweens. This might need to be on ones. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I think that especially having or like holding a kind of like town hall, I think with the other animators might also be a really good idea. Um um oh like cuz like in real life when you hold a town hall meeting, you go to like the town hall or city hall and it's like just a meeting on the goings-ons of the city, and you can propose like different projects or like bring up your concerns about what needs to be done. And so like in the context of a work environment or a school environment, town hall is just like everyone who is involved in the project uh like joins to a meeting, and we all talk about what to expect coming up, and then also concerns that we have going forward, if that makes sense. Something is so off about this frame. I think it just is like too far back. Oh, I'm off frame. There we go. That looks a little bit better. And I think part of it is just I'm not adjusting, I'm not squashing and stretching the body yet. So the next step from here is to do tie down pass. So the best way to do that is now grabbing pieces from the reference sheet and just bringing them over. And there will be a little fudging to do in terms, especially when we get to the poses. But for the most part, your contact and your down and up positions should stay relatively on model. So I'm not going to do too many details because I know that her reference has changed a little bit from this design, but I am going to at least mark in a few things. So again, because she is falling forward, her leg will kind of stretch a little bit. You get this kind of stretching of the knee from when you're standing. We're a little bit off model here. And I might bring her torso down, so maybe I'll leave this disconnected so I know to bring her torso down in reference. There we go. And then I'll just bring her torso down slightly. So now I'm just kind of bending the foot into shape. And then I'll do the same with the other contact pose, which is here. This one is slightly easier because I can just move the leg over here. And then I'll move this leg in front. Well, no. And then I'll use the warp tool to just bend the knee ever so slightly, as well as that foot that I may have to redraw. And we might actually see just a little bit of where her hood meets, kind of like this. And we'll just get a little bit of the buckle as opposed to the buckle being there. All good. I'm gonna pretty much be done in a little bit, so I'll have a chance to check over it pretty soon. And then since I'm feeling pretty confident now, I will, ooh, that's not right. I will get a chance to finish the cleanup of the other animation hopefully soon, and then I'll send that your way when I'm done with the sequence. Cool, cool. Yeah, very peaceful. No like random noises as I'm scrubbing back and forth. But yeah, that's pretty much the breakdown of how to do a walk cycle. Again, like I said, there's plenty of other ways to do it. This is the way that works best for me. Starting with contact posing, and then your passing position, and then your down or recoil and up. And that's it. Just making sure that you keep your arcs on the head and body and knees. Next time I might just keep going with Locomotion, and maybe I'll do her arms and like start breaking down a run as well. I want to do more tutorials like this, or more streams like this that are like kind of tutorials or like follow-alongs. I think they're fun. And then also because I'm working on the style guide for Inverse, and just, you know, some practice personality animations for each of the turtles. Yeah, so... And then hopefully the animation that I've been working on the past few weeks will be done and uploaded by this Friday. That's my hope, is to finish the cleanup and color by then. But no promises. Anyway, my dog's barking in the background. I don't know why, but I gotta go attend to him. But thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out. I like animating cycles like this. And Red, I'll make sure I send you the photo of the walk cycle breakdown. Anyway, I will be back to streaming again on Friday. It'll be at the same time. I'm trying to start earlier, 2 p.m. And let's see, did I have anything else to say? Nope. Alright. I will see you guys again on Friday. Have a good one.